Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I apologize for my appearance today. I am just tired and you'll hear why here in just a second. So, in my previous video, I had said that we were going to track more this cycle, and just really try before we had that appointment for next month to go back to the doctor and potentially be put on Clomid and all of that above. Okay. So, I found out Monday night, I think, that I was pregnant. So I found out on Monday evening, that I was pregnant. I don't even know why I went and took a test. I just had the urge to before we went to bed. And, I mean, I was kind of like having like some cramping and stuff like that, but it was like just like really low and like hitting my back and like my boobs were kind of sore. But I also kind of get like that before I start my period, and I was kind of far away from starting my period. So I'm like, but I never actually like confirmed ovulation either. I had started like working out at the school and subbing. And so I kind of like fell off the track of tracking, for lack of better words. And so I took an ovulation test and I took a couple pregnancy tests that I had, like different ones. And I was like, holy crap. Like, and the one of them I took was a first response. And so I'm like, okay, but like this doesn't look like the normal indent line that first response is like known for right now. And so I'm like, holy crap, like maybe I really am pregnant. Like, and so I immediately went and peed again and took more. And I had, let's see, what did I take? I took two first responses. So this is on like the 18th of October. I'm looking at the test right now. I'll show you in just a second. Yeah, so I took 2 first response tests. I just took a random first response the first time. I think I took that and an ovulation test. And that's when I saw the line and I'm like, oh my. So then I went and peed again. And then I took another first response test, a Pregmate strip test, and one of the clear blue red dye tests. And they all had pink lines on them. And I'm like, oh my God. So of course I'm like freaking out because A, of my history, B, just the fact that, oh my God, like I think I might be pregnant, but it's obviously super, super, super early. And so I tested again Tuesday morning and I took a first response, another one of the Pregmate strip tests, one of the like cheap blue dye like tests that everybody has. I don't even know what brand. It might have been like a Walmart brand, but it wasn't like the purple one. It was like their first response equivalent, if you know what I'm talking about, like the blue dye. I took another clear blue pink dye and also a clear blue dye test. And I think that was it. Yeah. And they were also positive and they were darker than they were the night before. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So I actually already had an appointment that day with my primary care. I just had like a follow-up appointment for some new medicine that she had put me on. So I called my OB office first thing Tuesday morning after I took the other set of tests. And I was like, listen, I just took multiple pregnancy tests. They're all positive. What should I do? Like, I already have a primary care doctor visit today. Should I have them do a beta or should I come to you guys to do a beta? They were both in the same town. So either way, it wouldn't have mattered to me. They said, well, since you're already going there, like just go ahead and have them do the beta draw and just call us tomorrow morning with the results. Okay, cool. So that's a whole nother story that I will also get into towards the end of this video. I filmed it yesterday when I was very frustrated on the phone. But yeah, I'm just going to record it differently today when I'm not as upset. So I'm going to flip the camera around and show you guys all of my tests, and the line progressions. I just took more, because I took a clear blue digital last night. I had taken one on Tuesday. It was not pregnant, which I expected it because I'm like, I'm not even 4 weeks until tomorrow. Like it's really that early. No idea when I ovulated either. So I don't even know what DPO I am. Nothing. Have no clue. But I had taken a clear blue digital last night and it came up positive, like pregnant. And I'm like, holy, I think that is like anybody else that's like in the TTC like community. And if you've experienced a miscarriage before, like, you know how like uneasy you feel until like you get like a clear blue digital, because those are like the hardest, I feel like, to get a positive like result on, especially if you're really early. So like last night I just felt so much better that I got that. But then I retook some more tests this morning. I took one of the Walmart cheapies, like the dollar like little cassette like tests. I think you know what I'm talking about. A Pregmate's strip test, and I think that's all I took. Yeah, I think I just took those 2 tests this morning. And the Pregmate strip test was a little bit lighter than it was last night. And so I was like, which they're kind of hard to see anyways. Those tests are like, they're very sensitive. Like, they're not very sensitive. So, but like my Walmart cheapie was darker than the one yesterday. And so I'm like, okay, but I just like got a wild hair at my butt, and I'm like, I had one more, first response, and then I had another blue dye, clear blue, and I have a ton of digital blue, clear blue. So I took another one of those too, just to like make myself feel a little bit better. And it's only been like maybe 4 hours ish. And so, I took those, and even I took another first response too. And I hadn't taken a first response since last night. And it's darker now. So I feel a lot better. I feel confident. And yeah, so I'm going to flip this around and I'm going to show you all my line progressions. So you guys can see them too. Okay. Okay. So as you can see, so this was the, I'll try and like get so you can see it. You can like, it's obviously it's a lot easier to see these lines in person than it is like over a camera, but this is what I took on Tuesday morning. You can kind of see like that super faint blue line there, and that showed up right away, which is why I definitely thought it was positive. This one was what I took that Monday night when I first found out, super faint line, but definitely there. And then this is the one I took that Tuesday morning, still super faint line, but definitely there. And then here are the clear blue dyes. So I have always had a super hard time getting a positive on these. So the fact that this one came up, I think this was on the Tuesday, was like, oh my gosh, like, is this for real? So there's that line. And then this was the next morning. And then this was last night. And then this is the one I just took right now. So as you can see, definitely much darker. And then there are my 2 positive clear blues. And then here are my Pregmate strip tests. So the very top one was what I took that Monday night. You can barely see a line there, but since the other ones were positive, I'm like, okay. Then Tuesday morning, Tuesday night, still kind of saw something more Tuesday night. Yesterday morning, there's definitely a line there. And then last night it was darker, which I felt good about. This is my one from this morning. And like I said, it was lighter, so I was like slightly concerned, but this bottom one, I'll move it to the one before. So I will move the one I just took to this one. So definitely, don't mind my dogs either. So you can see, so like this was last night, and then this is the one I just took. So it's definitely darker. So I don't know if like I just didn't saturate this one well enough or what, I don't know. It was definitely weird. Okay, so then here are my first response tests. So the top one was the very first one that I took, when I was like, okay, like there's definitely a line on that test. But of course, you know, with the way that they evap, I'm just like, okay. So then I peed on another one, and as you can see, it's much darker. And it was pink. And so I'm like, okay. And it showed up right away. And then this one is the next night. So yeah, Tuesday night, I took another one. So obviously you can see the line progression there. Then I took one the next morning, a little bit darker, not much, but I mean, that's to be expected. Like there was like less than 12 hours between those. This is the one that I took last night, and it's kind of weird. Like looking at it, it almost looks like either the same or maybe like a little bit lighter. But if you look, like I was looking at the line, and it's like kind of weird looking. Like it's kind of like got like some spaces in it, and it's not a perfect line, which I thought was kind of weird. And then this is the one that I just took, which is obviously darker, which is good. Oh, and then, I guess I'll show you. So these are the Walmart cheapies. So this one I took Tuesday night, then Wednesday morning, not a whole lot of change. Got a little bit darker last night. This is the one I took this morning, which was, I think, a little bit darker. It's weird that this one's yellow and the rest of them aren't, but either way. And then this one is like pretty much the same as that, which is to be expected for that. And I've always seen these videos where people talk about taking an ovulation test to see if you're pregnant. And so I was just curious. And so that was my ovulation test that I just took. So definitely positive, which I thought was kind of different. With the ovulation test, like I've seen so many different videos and like so many different like opinions on that. Like some people are like far into their pregnancy and it doesn't show anything. Like it just looks like normal. Like there's a second line there, but not dark, not the same, like almost like a positive ovulation test. But then like to see that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't even technically missed my period yet. So, but yeah, so those are all my line progressions. Super crazy, honestly. Like I am still kind of in shock. Like I think that's why I keep testing so much, like because I'm just like, I almost like don't believe it, you know what I mean? And so yeah, I'm just kind of like in shock, I think. Like it definitely feels a little bit more real for sure, but like I said, like I'm just very cautiously optimistic because of my history. But this is the longest that I've gotten positive tests, and the fact that the lines are getting darker is super reassuring to me. So I'm gonna go move locations and then I will explain what happened yesterday and what I had started the video on yesterday but decided to redo today, which will kind of explain some of like the testing and doctors and all of that fun stuff. So just 1 second. Okay, so I'm just going to apologize now for my animals. As you all know, I have 3 dogs and a cat inside. I have another cat outside, but he's not usually crazy. The cat I have inside's a kitten, so she's always into everything. Anyways, so yesterday, or no, today's what, Thursday? So on Tuesday, when I went to my primary doctor, like I said, I already had that appointment scheduled. Semi worked out, I guess, to be able to get my beta drawn there, but I could have easily just gone to my OB's office and done it. But either way, whatever. So, got the positive test Monday night, took more Tuesday morning before as soon as I got up, first morning urine took more darker. So I felt pretty confident in getting my beta drawn that day because I'm like, it's got to show something. Like those tests that were, like first response obviously is like super sensitive, but like to get a positive on like the clear blue dye, which I know that some people say those are sensitive too, but I don't think they're as sensitive for me, or at least in my own experience, like before. And so I felt semi-confident that it would show positive because you know how like when you get your HCG drawn, like they say like anything from 0 to 5 is like negative. 6 to like 24 is like a gray period, like a gray zone where like it's not 100% you're pregnant. And then anything like 25 and above, like you're for sure pregnant. So I was like anxious to see what my number was because I'm like, it has to be more than like 5. I was thinking probably like around 10 to 15 is probably what I was imagining it would be, especially because at that point, let's see, I'm 3 weeks, 6 days today. So I would have been 3 weeks, 4 days on Tuesday. So super, super early, like crazy early. And so I went and got my blood drawn, and with my doctor's office, I have they call it like a My Chart, which I'm sure other hospitals and stuff use it as well. But you can, anytime that you get like blood work done or any sort of like results, it sends it to your My Chart. And so you're able usually to see it before a doctor would call you or anything like that. And so since I needed to call and give those results to my OBGYN, I had called because I kept checking the night before or Tuesday night. They were not in my chart. So I called like pretty much around the time that they opened on Wednesday morning, so yesterday morning, to see if they had the results, like if they'd even gotten them back yet, like all of that, because it was kind of afternoon time when I took the test, so sometimes it takes a little bit longer, like later in the day, you get it the day before, it'll take a little bit longer, which is completely understandable. And she's like, the lady that I spoke to was just like at the front desk of the place that I go to, and she was like, yeah, the results are in, but the doctor has to view the results first before they are released to your my chart. And I'm like, okay, like I get that. Like, that's no problem. Like, she's like, surely soon, like she'll have them released and then you should be able to see them, or somebody will call you, or both. Okay, cool. So I was fine with that. That's fine. So, a couple hours had gone by and she had put a note back for the nurse to call me too. And, I hadn't received a phone call from anybody, still nothing in my mind chart. And so I'm like, okay, like I'm going to call them again, but I also have an option to send a message through my my chart to my doctor and her nurses. And so I'm like, I'm going to go ahead and just send a message to plus call just to make sure that they're getting the message that, you know, I'm needing this information so I can call and make an appointment with my OB. So I did that. No response. They still, like when I talked to them on the phone, they're like, yeah, like we'll put a note back, like to have somebody call you. Okay, cool. So another hour goes by, still nothing. Send another message on my chart and call again. They send another message back. And I finally get a message from my doctor. Now, mind you, this doctor, I've only seen her since, I don't know, I've only seen her for a few months, like June, July-ish. I mean, I've gone to this place before, like for the urgent care and things like that, but I had not, ever since our insurance changed, like when my husband and I got married, which was over a year ago now, I had just not established like a primary care person, if that makes sense. Like I'd been going to the OBGYN, and so I'm like, I've been seeing a doctor, but until things got worse with me and really trying to figure out why I was not getting pregnant and what was going on with my body, I finally decided to go. So she knows my history. She knows that I've had the 2 early miscarriages. She obviously knows that I'm on the metformin because she's the one that increased the dose. And so I take like, I think it's 1,000 milligrams twice a day. So she knows that I've been trying to get pregnant. But the last time I was in there, she's like, well, you're only 27. Like, you know, I'm 35 and I haven't even gotten married yet. And I'm like, okay, like that's cool. But don't tell me that just because I'm 27, I don't need to have a baby right now. Like, if I want to have a baby, I should be able to have a baby. And as my doctor, unless there's like a complete medical reason why I shouldn't get pregnant, you shouldn't prevent me from trying to get pregnant. Like, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but that was the last time that was the last appointment that I saw her at. So at this appointment, I'm telling her, you know, I took multiple pregnancy tests, all different brands. They were all positive. Showed her the pictures on my phone of the positive tests. And she's like, yeah, like I definitely see lines there. And she's like, well, I already put in your like thing for your beta, so you can go do that when you leave here. She had put me on, well, it's bupropion, but it's the Wellbutrin or whatever. She had put me on that the last time as well. And so that was what my follow-up was for. And she told me to stop taking that, for right now, because it's not good to take when you're pregnant. Like there's not much research on it. And so she's like, you know, still talk to your OB about it and see what she wants you to do, but just stop taking it for right now. Okay. So obviously she thought I was pregnant, right? Like that's what you would think. So I get a message from her. I don't get the results. I still have not gotten the results sent to my chart. Okay. So I still cannot view what my level was via the lab work. Okay. So she sends me a message and all she says is, your results are negative for pregnancy, sincerely, and signs her name. So I'm just like, what the hell at that point, right? Because I'm already on edge because it's like, I can't believe it that these tests are positive, but like, I obviously know what a positive test looks like and what a negative test looks like. I've seen a lot of negative tests. These were not negative tests. And so I was very like taken aback by that because I'm like, you know my history. You know that we've been trying this was our 15th month of trying to get pregnant consistently. So why would you just send that type of a message and then not send what the level was, which is what I had been requesting and what I had sent in both of my previous messages to you? Why would you not send what the level was? Why would you just say that? Like, whatever. So I'm irritated at this point. And so I call back to the same number and I'm like, listen, my doctor just sent me this message. She's telling me that my test results were negative for pregnancy. I don't believe that. I think that my number is really low and I think it's in the gray area. I need to know what that number is to give to my OBGYN. That is what I've said from the very beginning. That's what I've said in my 2 messages that I sent her that she just replied to. And I said I sent another message as well and still have not heard back from her. I need somebody to tell me what this number is immediately. Like, I don't understand how difficult this is. And she's like, well, I can't give you that over the phone. Like, a nurse has to call you. Okay, well, then transfer me to a nurse. Well, we can't do that. Okay, well, then put a thing in that it's urgent for somebody to call me back. Like, this is ridiculous. I've called all day. I mean, by this point, it was like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I had called as soon as they opened that morning, like at 9 a.m. Like, come on. So I then tried calling, like, the lab. She couldn't give me it. I tried calling, like, we have like a patient advisory nurse that you can call that's through this hospital. Tried calling her, thinking maybe she's a nurse. She would be able to give me the results. She couldn't give me the results. Called my OBGYN office and told them what they said. And they're like, okay, well, if there's, a beta is pretty, like, it's pretty conclusive. So if she's saying that you're negative for pregnancy, then you're not pregnant. And I'm like, I'm telling you right now that I have taken multiple brands of pregnancy tests. They are all positive. They've gotten darker since the very first test that I've taken. Like, I just took more. They're all positive and the lines are darker. And so, like, I need to know what, like, is going on. And I said, they are, like, not telling me what the number is. And so I'm like, what do I do? And they're like, well, you just need to stop taking pregnancy tests, wait until you actually miss your period, and then you can just come in here to take a beta. I'm like, okay. So then I was super frustrated, which I just don't understand. I mean, I understand that right now the healthcare industry is just so overran. They're short-staffed. I get it. I 100% get it. My aunt is a nurse. I have an uncle that is HR for a major hospital, and I get it. I get it. But at the same time, if you've got a patient who was just there the day before, you know what her history is, and she's called multiple times just to have somebody tell her 2 numbers, like a double-digit number. Wouldn't you think that you'd be able to just call somebody and tell them that really quick? Or just release it to my MyChart. If you viewed it, then why hasn't it been released to my MyChart so I can just see it myself? Like, that makes 0 sense to me. And so I am just, like, super frustrated at that point. I send another message. I call back again, and I am irate at this point, which it takes a lot to get me to that point. But I'm like, this is just ridiculous. Like, at what point do you stop being, like, a nice person and turn into a crazy person because you have to advocate for yourself because nobody will answer your question or tell you the information that you need? Like, what are you supposed to do, And so I finally, like, got a message back from one of the nurses of my doctor, and all he says is, your HCG level is 12. That's all he says, which I'm like, okay, thank you. Like, I knew that it had to be between 10 and 15. Like, I knew it wasn't going to be like 25 or 50 or 100. I knew that. I'm only 3 weeks and 4 days when I got this beta drawn. I know this. Like, just tell me what the number is. That's all I needed to know. And so I immediately called my OBGYN back, and I'm like, okay, like, I finally have the number. And they're like, oh, okay, like, what is it? And I said 12. And they're like, and she just said that you were negative? And I said, yes. And they're like, when was the day of your last, like, period? And I'm like, the 25th of September. She's like, so 12 is, like, normal then for you because you're that early. I said, exactly. That was my whole point. And I said, and it was super frustrating that all she said was that you're negative for pregnancy because obviously that's not true. She's like, no, like, I'm sorry that she said that to you. Like, that's not the case. And so I was like, so what should I do? Do you want me to come in tomorrow, meaning today, to get my blood drawn again? Because that would be like 48 hours after the fact to make sure that it's going up the way it's supposed to. And so she puts me on hold to ask the doctor. And so the doctor's essentially just like, you're supposed to maybe start your period like sometime this weekend. Wait until that's over. We're already going to put the blood work, lab in for you to come get your beta drawn. Wait until that date that you would have missed your period and then come in and get your beta drawn again. I'm like, okay. Excuse me. So I'm like, okay, I will do that. She's like, and then once we establish that, she's like, you already have an appointment scheduled for like the November 16th or something like that, November 15th or 16th. She's like, so once we get your beta drawn, we might just keep that appointment and then we'll just go from there. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, thank you, appreciate it. But I'm just like, you know, and then I come home last night and I take that digital, and I wasn't, because of getting that result that it was 12, I was not expecting that to be positive. I really was not. And when it popped up positive, I like showed my husband, like, okay, this is like real now. Like, I feel like I can kind of like take a breath. And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I understand, you know, every healthcare provider is different. I get it. But I just feel like there needs to be a little bit more sensitivity around women and conception, and especially if they've had a history of miscarriage and a history of like not being able to get pregnant, and you're 1 month away from, like, essentially like this was the last cycle before we would go to the doctor to potentially be put on Clomid. So when you know that and then you just say that, like, I don't know. I was just super irritated, but for right now, my lines are getting darker. I am pregnant for right now. In this moment, I'm pregnant, and I am celebrating that, and I'm acting like I'm pregnant, and I'm going to continue to do that until I'm told otherwise. And so, you know, I have been praying, and we told our families. I know that that's super early to like tell anybody, but the way I look at it is, with our history, like, even if something does end up happening to this baby, at least that this baby was celebrated and loved for the time that we knew that. And so that's the way I look at it. And, you know, either way, I'm pregnant right now, and that's something to celebrate. And that's the way I look at it. So, yeah, so I will start doing, pregnancy updates. I'm supposed to be 4 weeks tomorrow, so I'll probably try and film another, video either today or tomorrow, you know, going over like my 4-week update, symptoms that I've had so far, how I'm feeling, things like that. Just because like right now, like I've been like watching other people, like, to see like, okay, is this normal? Like, I'm having some cramping. Is this normal? Like, you know, things like that. And so, that was my whole purpose of like even starting this platform, is to help other people who were in the same, you know, journey as I am, and to help people, you know, out in any way that I can, and, you know, share experiences and learn from each other, because there's not a whole lot of resources out there. And I mean, I think just Googling stuff isn't super accurate, but hearing what actual real people are going through at the same time that you're going through it, I feel like helps a lot. And so that's my whole goal. And yeah, so I hope that you guys subscribe and follow along to hopefully us, fingers crossed, getting our rainbow baby this July. That's according to my app when my due date is. I'm very excited, still semi-cautiously optimistic, but I definitely feel more confident this time with everything that has happened so far. So yeah, please like this video, subscribe, comment down below if you've had a similar experience to what I just explained. Also, if you're pregnant right now too, and so we can just kind of follow along on each other's journeys together. But yeah, make sure you subscribe, and I'll be back next time with a video. Thanks for watching.